here? You ever notice that the information that we're being fed doesn't always add up to the truth? Do you ever look out your window at night when the rain's falling down? You ever look down the street and wonder what is going on around you? You ever look out at night and ask yourself, is this all that I am? Where am I? What am I? Is this all there is? Is this real life? As technology continues to bring us closer together, it also tears us further apart. We watch the skies and look at the planet around us and its natural beauty as it continues to march forward on and on and on, unending, unceasing, unwavering. And yet our world, everything that we've built, crumbles around us. We wonder, is this it? Is there more? There's gotta be. We can search. We want to learn. We want to understand. We want to see all that we can see, know that all that we can know. We want to look out there. We want to peek behind the veil. We want to ask the questions that nobody will answer. We want to light those fires, the sparks that ignite a curiosity in us. And we ask ourselves, what is out beyond all of that? Beyond the edge of reality? Good evening, everybody. Welcome. It is Thursday. It is not our usual time that we do this, but thinking that we might be moving Edge of Reality to Thursdays. And good to see all of you out there. I will admit I almost did not do this stream tonight. Reason being is just I will freely admit that I have had some, if you want to call it anything, call it, the old doubt creeping into my mind on stuff lately. But you know what? I decided I'm going to say to hell with it. I'm going to throw caution to the wind and I'm going to show up. And by God, I am so, so unbelievably grateful to all of you out there watching right now. I mean, I kind of expected because of the lull recently to just be able to just kind of hit on and well, I was not sure how many of you all would be here, and I'm super happy and pumped to see there is at least a dozen of you right now in the audience. So to every single one of you, I absolutely love you. Thank you so much, and I am very happy to see every single one of you. Okay, getting all that mushy gushy bull crap out of the way. What's going on, everybody? How y'all doing? It's Kaiser. It is time for Edge of Reality, where we are going to be jumping into the strange, the unknown, and all in between. So, again, everybody, thank you all so much for showing up. And please definitely hit that like button. If you're new here and this is your first time watching this, well, hey, congratulations. Kick your shoes off. Stay a while. We got some fun stuff for you. Feel free to hit that subscribe button so that way you can see all my content, not just the sometimes often supposed to be weekly Edge reality show. I am trying to get back on the horse, guys. I really am. And yeah, so to everybody out there, so going around Murph's turf. Hey Murph, how you doing? Say good to see you. Genitals, how you doing? And Pixie78, how you doing, Pixie? And ACHT out there. What's going on, HT? Good to see all of y'all. And see Hal, what's going on, buddy? I'm only here to see boobs, even if it's alien boobs. Well, I hate to say I'm going to disappoint you on that one, but okay, something for me to work on. Okay, memo to self include boobs. Jeez. Yeah. So, oh, thanks, Murph. Say, hope everything's okay. Guys, I hope everything's okay. Yep, thank you. Yeah, it's just, we've had a little bit of a lull with everything lately, and I've kind of had this very weird gap in a lot of my production schedule, and just because of that,
I had a couple of cases that I wanted to do a show on, Missing 411 being one of them, and also Skinwalker Ranch. Both were highly requested by my chat, and I want to be able to put forward the best content I possibly can to all of y'all out there. Unfortunately, it turns out that those topics, while I will definitely be doing a video on those in the future, I bit off a little more than I could chew with the research on those, because turns out there is a overwhelming large amount of research already out there. Combing through all of that to try and sift the wheat from the chaff, so to speak, that's a lot. Yes, those are huge topics. I completely bit off more than I could chew on those. But this one for tonight, I have actually had locked and loaded for a long time. I've had it kind of in my back pocket that I've been waiting to kind of pull out, and it's one that really hit me by surprise whenever I first heard about it. It's weird. And I know that there is a lot of questions to be asked around it, and especially with, I know the chief complaint that a lot of people have, especially, one of the chief complaints I have in a lot of UFO and just paranormal, supernatural, and whatnot type of cases, is that there's a lack of evidence and an over preponderance of eyewitness testimony. And in as with this case, and it is in a lot of others, there's a long time between when something is alerted, reportedly happens, and a long time before it actually starts getting talked about. And so there's time, people's minds, people have a tendency to kind of have issues with their memory over time. But you're talking about events that are life changing. But there's also a very interesting few threads that, as I have dug into this story since really about the beginning of last year, whenever I first heard about this, and since I really dug into it and I listened and I did my own research just outside of this show, long time, the thing that always stuck out to me is that there are a number of interconnecting threads that all of the eyewitnesses all say were occurring, all things that they all said that all seem to mesh together in a very odd way. People that have never met, never talked, and had their never had any of their lives intertwined in the slightest. And yet, for some reason, they have these common threads. Murph saying my brain is still digesting the Putin interview. I heard about that. I have not seen it yet. I'm thinking I would watch that and dig into that tomorrow, like just on my own, because yeah, I think that's probably going to take a little bit to get my brain around. They need to switch to aliens. Let's switch to a slightly more heartwarming and easier to talk about topic. Aliens. Aliens. Oh, you should, Kaiser. It's very interesting. I'm sure I need to. Yeah, that I heard that was going on, and I'm like, yo, I need to, I need to watch that, but I need to be able to do it on my own time. Ah. Behave yourself, Hal. Love you, buddy, but behave yourself. Yeah, aliens are definitely easier to talk about, 100%. General says, I was watching the Putin interview in the car wash, but got distracted by tricolor foam. Goodness. Yeah, it's gonna be a good time. So, as always, folks, let me go ahead and throw the good old fashioned little ticker down at the bottom. All right, because we're gonna be getting into some stuff, and I'm gonna have to definitely show some content here, but we're gonna get into it. All right. And definitely want to go ahead and real quick check on over at Rumble. And I see we've got at least 2 viewers over on Rumble as well as YouTube. Thank you for joining us over there. But, folks, I say always good to have you. And also, we are simultaneously streaming this to X as well. And yeah, currently it looks like there's at least a few folks watching over there on X right now. Good to see you. Thank you so much for joining. All right. So that actually just reminds me, I do need to grab something that I had saved over on X as well, which is going to take me a minute or two to actually find because it's going to be buried way the frick down in my what you call that bookmark section. But anyway, as we're kind of getting into all of it, I guess we can just catch up and talk about what we're going to be talking about for the evening. So, what are we talking about? Well, let's get into it. I've put this off for almost 15 minutes. We've got 11 folks watching, so let's just get into it and get this thing started. All right. So, January 20th, 1996. Seems like a pretty normal winter day, for us it's winter. Of course it's a lot it's not quite as cold down there in the southern climes around South America, those equatorial regions. But US satellite and radar network NORAD detects an object entering Earth's atmosphere, and it seems to be heading towards the 7th largest city in Brazil, a town, I should say a city, by the name of Varginha. This is not a small community. This is a pretty large place. Hey, what's going on, MLS? Hey, I did catch your chat in my stream the other day and forgot to respond. It was a rough day, but absolutely yes. Want to continue Star Wars if you have me. Yay! At your leisure, my good man, because YouTube burnout is real. I get it. So we will cross that bridge when we are both good and ready. But whenever you want to do it, absolutely. But we're not going to put pressure on it because I definitely want to make sure that you have a chance to decompress a little. All good, buddy. I say glad to see you in the chat, and hope things are going good for you, and hope the best for you. Absolutely, hope the best for you. 100%. All right. Anyway, continuing on. So, yes. With that being said, NORAD picks up this object entering Earth's atmosphere. It's headed toward Varginha, and it's in the early morning hours. It's still dark when all this happens, and a nearby cow farm, the husband and wife that own this little farm, they hear their animals rustling around, seem to be a little bit spooked almost. They come outside to see their cows running across the field away from something. And as they could see about 300 feet in the air, they said they claimed to see a cigar-shaped silver object, and it's moving strangely, as if it's having difficulty maintaining altitude. There's a what seems to be a, as they say, as it crosses over their house, they can see a large crack down the side of it and white smoke billowing out the side. It goes over the tree line, disappears, and they hear a loud crash. Hey, Fast Group, what's going on, buddy? Don't let me forget. I've been meaning to talk to you about something. I got to remember. It was something that I talked to with Shenny about, and um, I keep forgetting to email you about it. I am the worst about communication, and I am so sorry. But yes, good to see you, bud. And I don't let me forget. I need to talk to you about it. But anyway, so with all that being said, also driving down the road goes right by there is by this farm. There's a guy driving by. He's an ultralight pilot as well as a teacher. Yeah, I'll get you, man. Don't worry about it. I'll get you. And he notices, looking up over the tree line, he can see this silvery object in the sky as well. And he, as an airline, or he as an ultralight pilot, he thinks, "Oh my gosh, this is possibly a plane." He sees white smoke billowing out the side, and he sees it going down toward this field, like, and it's going to crash. And he's like, "I got to go help these people. It's a plane going down. I got to go help." And so he drives his Jeep as fast as he can toward where as close as he can get to the road. He runs out into the field and he finds this field strewn with debris and a very strange noxious odor, clouds of some kind of a gas that just doesn't seem to be normal. And he starts finding the debris, and something about it is just, as he picks it up, holds a piece that he claims is about maybe as thick as a piece of tinfoil. It's light as a feather. It is lighter than normal aluminum would be. And he even says at one point he crumpled it up in his hands and then he let go of it and it unfolded and returned to its shape. What the heck is this thing? Is this thing? Suddenly, he notices lights coming up the road and he turns to see a whole convoy of military trucks that pull up next to the road, and military men get out with rifles, run up to him, and they are shouting in his face with a rifle 6 inches from his face, shouting at him to leave, to go away, and, get out of there. At first, he tried to protest, but then they persuaded him to leave. That man's name was Carlos de Souza. He'll be one person that you hear the testimony from tonight. Carlos de Souza, after seeing this and being told to leave by the military, he leaves. He goes into town to stop off at a little diner to kind of collect his thoughts and figure out, like, what did he just see? What did he just witness? As he's sitting there, he then claims that a couple of men in dark suits in a black car pull up outside. They come into the coffee shop. They sit down next to him and they tell him, "We know who you are." They tell him his name. They say, "We know we know about your wife. We know about your kids. We know about your job. We know everything about you. And you are going to forget everything you saw tonight. You're not going to say a word about it, because if you do, we're going to make your life a living hell." And then they leave. Hey, traveling fools, what's up? Carlos de Souza then keeps his quiet. Doesn't say a word about this for 26 years. Similarly, at a hospital, Humanitas Hospital nearby, military trucks show up with 2 body bags and some steel crates. And they go ahead and unload something. They close off an entire wing of the hospital. They pull a couple of doctors, one of which they is an X-ray technician. They pull him by, and they basically tell him, "You're going to take X-rays. You're not allowed to see what's in the bag." They throw the bag onto the table, and they require him to take the X-rays. This was 1996. Their genitals, 1996, January 20th, 1996. So the doctor takes the X-rays. He doesn't even get a chance to see the actual photos. They basically just take the X-ray film out of the machine immediately after he's done, and they turn around. They tell him, "We were never here. We were never." He's like, "There's nothing that ever happened. You are not to talk about this in any way, shape, or form." And they leave. The only thing left behind is a smell. A very distinct, very disturbing smell. A smell that later Carlos de Souza remembers he smelled at the crash site when he saw this thing crash. Only about a day or two later, or actually, probably about, actually, I apologize on the timeline there. So, less than a day before the hospital, two sisters and their friend, these 3 girls in town, are walking by a little area of town. There's a concrete block wall, and allegedly, one of them spots a creature kneeling down, crouched up against the wall. All 3 of them then turn and they see this thing, and they claim to see this small 3, maybe 4 foot tall being crouched over, dark brown, oily looking skin, red eyes, 3 little bumps or ridges on its head, just with hands and feet only having 3 digits apiece, crouched over, and it looks at them. 2 of the girls, the sister and the friend, run away, but one of them, the older sister, stays behind and actually looks at this thing and apparently this thing looks right at her. And she says for an instant, although no words were said, she could feel this thing and she could understand it. It was hungry, it was scared, and it was tired and sick. Yeah, the smell was the smell also emanated from this creature. A strong smell of almost overwhelming, like sulfur and ammonia. Same sulfur and ammonia smell that would later be reported at Humanitas Hospital. So the other 2 sisters come back, get the other sister. They run back to their house thinking they had seen a demon, run to go get their mom. They bring the mom back. The mom looks at the site. The mom reports the same exact smell. And she claims to have found a footprint in the area, but she didn't see the creature there. But just being in that area, she reported the same exact sulfur and ammonia smell that lingered so horribly in her sinuses that even despite trying to wash it out of her sinuses with, like, you know, different types of pharmaceutical rinses and whatnot, she could not get the smell out of her nose. It took in upwards of days, even a couple of weeks, to finally get the smell out of her nose. Not even hardly 24 hours after this sighting, two military men, actually not even 24 hours, it was about 3 hours after the sighting, military men were dispatched to the area. Two of them are driving in a car. So the first is like the first guy, the driver of the car, his name is Eric Lopes or Lopez, depending on how you pronounce it. But it's been told to me that his pronunciation is Eric Lopes. Hey, cool gamer. And sitting next to him is a young private by the name of Marco Scerese. They're driving their military staff car through the town. They were told to go patrol the area, told that there was something strange in the area and they needed to look at it. This creature runs out in front of their car, just barely missing the car. And Marco Scerese, immediately after coming to a stop, jumps out of the car and with his bare hands grabs this creature. And it struggles for a bit, and then he manages to get it into the car. And they drive it to a nearby clinic after it apparently just passes out. They get the creature to this clinic. The clinic turns them around. They then take the creature to Humanitas Hospital. And they meet up with a military convoy there. It gets even weirder because maybe 24 hours after this encounter, Marco Scerese develops a mysterious infection and dies. This strange infection, they couldn't point to any kind of a reason for it, but the blood tests that were run at the time showed an 8% toxicity level of an unknown chemical compound that managed to get into his bloodstream and killed him. Similarly, and widely unreported, a firefighter in a nearby area, that this fire brigade caught another one of these creatures. One of the firemen touched one of these creatures as well. He died as well of a mysterious infection with the same telltale signs hours later. After the x-rays have been done and the two bags and the two crates are taken away from Humanitas Hospital, the doctors report it takes upwards of 4 to 10 days to get the smell out of the hospital wing. They have to keep it closed down and sanitize it. It just continues to reek of sulfur and ammonia. Those are just some of the stories and just some of the strange parts of the story, but it gets even weirder when an air traffic controller nearby that at one of the at the major airport in Varginha reports that a plane that is not on the regular routes, it's not registered to anything that's there that they know, requests a landing. He tells this thing, "Hey, we can't let you land." But then one of his supervisors comes up to him and says, "Let the plane land." The plane lands and taxis over to a gate. And the only thing he could really say is that he didn't know anything like who this plane belonged to or what it was doing there. But he said he remembered it says USAF on the side. USAF, United States Air Force. From there, two helicopters take off headed toward a military base. They pick up everything that was, the bags, the crates, everything of the military for Brazil, the ESA, had gathered, loads it onto this cargo plane, and they're wheels up and headed back to the States without so much as a word being said. Quickly, quietly, hushed up. And outside of 1996, when it was initially reported, the tale then went cold for nearly 26 years. And that is just that is just the Cliff Notes version of what happened. We've got a lot more to cover. And interestingly enough, there is some validation in this because we have a news article. Yep. The Wall Street Journal, published date, let me go ahead and make sure you can see that here. Published date, June 28th, 1996. Tales of stinky extraterrestrials stir up UFO crowd in Brazil. Interesting. Now, we don't have the full article here because Wall Street Journal is a bastard and they won't let us actually read everything without all their usual payments and everything like that. But, well, whatever. They at least have that much there. So, how did this, after 26 years, start to even gain any kind of recognition again? How did people know about this story? Really, just kind of, it just crept back into the public sphere right around 2022. Well, what happened in 2022? Well, filmmaker and documentarian James Fox created a documentary about the incident. And it was even covered by the New York Post about this story where people claimed they saw aliens after UFO crash landed in Brazil in 1996. And kind of goes through the basic cliff notes of the entire thing. That is Carlos de Souza. That is the alleged creature that was found by the wall. The alleged recreation of the crash site. The two sisters and the friend, Katia Xavier, Valkyria Silva, Lelaine Silva, where they said this is the exact wall where they claimed to have seen the creature. And this is the same picture of them from 1996. And say Varginha is just a little bit north of Sao Paulo, near Rio de Janeiro. It's in southeastern Brazil. And again, this keeps getting mentioned over and over. You'll hear this. I couldn't stand the smell. I don't know where it came from, but it smelled worse than sulfur. You're going to hear that a lot. We're going to get into it. We're going to talk a little bit about it. I'm going to give you guys what I can of this whole thing. It's going to be a wild one. So, there's a couple of videos that I did want to grab for you guys. Hang tight while there's one more I'm going to grab, but I'm going to go ahead and throw this up here. And we're going to watch, this is a Fox 40 broadcast where James Fox gets to kind of tell a little bit of his story about it. And that way, he can kind of tell you what's going on there. All right. So that is just the kind of the prologue to everything. Now, something that needs to be noted. You kind of move that back over there. Okay. So, again, I want you to suspend your disbelief. I want you to listen to what happens here. And I highly recommend, if you have the opportunity, please definitely go see the documentary. It used to be on YouTube. It is no longer on YouTube. Unfortunately, it looks like it got taken down. Um, but I know that it is available on, like you were saying, Amazon, Vudu, Apple streaming, all that. Please definitely check out that documentary. It is amazing and well produced, and I would highly recommend any of his documentaries, particularly Moment of Contact and The Phenomenon. Both are incredibly good. And like the interviewer says, James Fox is really good at making sure that who he gets to actually talk to, who he promotes, these are not fringe people. These are very much grounded, regular people with very real things that happen to them that they just cannot explain. He really weeds out a lot of the a lot of the very untrustworthy, or the kind of like the more fringe, people that try to glom onto a lot of these stories. So seeing that he does that is very, very, very important. I think it's incredibly worthwhile to note that. So, all right. What I'm going to go ahead and do first off is that we're going to take you to the crash site. First thing we're going to do is we're going to listen to the interview of Carlos de Souza. Now, yes, this is in Portuguese. I do have it to have YouTube set to auto translate to English. So, just forewarning you on that. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to see that. This man was allegedly the first person to not only see this thing crash, but to be the first person on scene to try and, at thinking that it was an airplane crash, try to help.
A tendência dele seria ele ficar no chão, ele vinha caindo lentamente, tá como se fosse ângulo.
Let's see if I can. I wonder if I can. No, never mind. I'm just going to have to let it go. All right. Just going to have to read along, sorry.
A tendência dele seria ele ficar no chão, ele vinha caindo lentamente, tá como se fosse ângulo de 30 graus, descendo lentamente, como se estivesse perdendo força, tá? E perdendo altitude. Só que ele planava, ia perdendo lentamente altitude.
Hey, Elephant.
Como se estivesse procurando algum local para poder baixar, algum local para poder assentar, chegar ao solo. Porque esse dia que ele estava com graves problemas de altitude, porque saía muita fumaça branca do lado dele.
Having major altitude problems because there's a lot of white smoke on the side, but as if it were a water buoy, as if the long buoys poured white smoke coming out. It was as if there was something catching smoke coming out from the side, not from the sky. Again, this is an auto translate, so yeah. The mess as if it was some kind of washing machine, something that was struggling to stay up until here is what we saw. Okay. He was tall black boy. He was in uniform. He was wearing dark gray pants, a light brown blouse, a little cap. You see how normally as a soldier, and just like as is those caps, there's a cap. He stopped me, and he was already there, a voice in the background, and at the end of it, behind his back, shouting, "Send it away, send it away, send it away!" And that's when I thought I found it at the place I saw a piece of the object from this
Eu
aircraft
dobrei ela, isso que me chamou
that
a
I
atenção.
folded
Quando eu
them,
amassei, aí eu
that caught my
soltei. Quando eu
attention.
soltei, ela voltou
That
ao
was
formato original.
okay. Yeah, I let it go
Isso me
and
chamou
went back to its
muita
original
atenção.
shape.
E eles
Caught my
me tomaram
attention.
isso da mão, literalmente. Bateram na minha mão,
Wow.
falaram pra mim, dá isso aqui e vai embora, some daqui. Foi, pô, mas caiu eu até aquele momento vi saber que era um objeto, estava um objeto
Pretty
voador,
amazing.
mas achava que era um avião, alguma coisa assim. Eu estranhei muito no local ter 2 caminhões Mercedes do Exército,
2 Mercedes Army trucks, a bunch of about 30 to 40 people searching the bush as if they were looking for something to do a sweep.
E fora isso, o pessoal
And other than that,
estava
the people I
pegando
was
pedaços.
picking up pieces. It would
Caminhões tinha
be on the
vários
top of the trucks
pedaços
here and several pieces
desse
of
material que eu peguei na
this
mão e
material,
amassei,
and
ele
I
voltou ao
took it in my
normal.
hand and crushed it
Vários
back
veículos a mais tinham lá, além
to
dos 2
normal.
caminhões. Tinha um
One of
helicóptero
the, yeah,
do Exército,
there's a
bem
very
grande,
large Army
helicóptero,
helicopter.
helicóptero pequeno, esse lá, bem grande,
Small
que
helicopter was a very
civis,
large
coisa. E uma coisa que me chamou
coup
muita
that
atenção também
carries
foi
these
cheiro de amônia que
things.
estava tendo, porque tinha uma
Caught my
ambulância
attention.
lá.
The smell of
Pela ambulância eu
ammonia
achei
that I was
na hora que
aware
eu vi a
of
ambulância, pô,
because I
houve
thought
uma queda de um avião.
yeah,
Ambulância branca?
I couldn't quite keep up with that.
Ambulância, não, ambulância manchada de cores do Exército. Aquela tipo camuflada, que tinha uma cruz bem no meio, se via que era uma ambulância. E um cheiro de amônia desgraçado, que ninguém aguentava aquele cheiro. Você viu algum
Smelled
objeto
ammonia.
caído
Damn it, I
além do...
couldn't handle that
Não,
smell.
só vi
I
vários,
didn't
como se
see
fosse
any
você pegar
fallen objects.
papel, você tá
Wow.
andando no alto, pegar papel e jogar papel para todo lado. Não viu nada grande? Não, uma coisa maior que eu vi foi a traseira de um Opala. Mais ou menos, o tamanho traseiro de um carro, de um Opala, um pedaço, em cima do caminhão. Foi o maior pedaço que eu vi. Desse objeto, realmente. Só que agora, fora isso, não me deixaram ver mais nada. Aí, depois disso, eu retornei, fiz a volta, retornei, passei por esse mesmo local. No segundo posto de gasolina, que vão acender esse outro, aí atrás para frente, eu parei para comer, porque eu estava com fome, devia ser mais ou menos umas 10h30, 11 horas da manhã, eu tinha saído de madrugada. Eu parei para comer. Aí quando eu parei para comer,
I stopped to eat, and then when I stopped to eat, then Opal behind a blue Opal, but with the lamb.
Eu fui ao banheiro, quando eu voltei do banheiro,
Okay.
o rapaz virou para mim e falou:
Went to the bathroom,
olha,
came back to the
é o
bathroom,
seu
and Boyd
carro,
called
o
me
rapaz sabe meu
instead
nome,
to give
nome
him
dos meus pais, e é tudo.
to look like.
Sabia
Okay,
tudo
sorry.
quem eu era, quem não era. E o rapaz falou: olha, você não viu nada, você não sabe de nada. Eu falei: não, mas quem uma vez falou: você não
Yeah,
sabe
you
nada.
didn't see anything. You don't know anything. You don't know anything. Shut up and go away. It's better for you.
Na hora fiquei assim,
Yeah.
achando.
No, I was super scared.
Uma coisa que eu não devia ter visto, eu vi, tá? Fiquei com medo. Nesse momento, eu montei no carro e fui embora para São Paulo. Chegando em casa, relatei a minha esposa depois de um tempo. Ela falou para mim: melhor a gente ficar quieto e a gente ganha mais. O que eu vi, literalmente, foi isso. E esse aparelho, uma coisa que me chamou a atenção, que era um metal que brilhava muito quando ele passou sobre mim. Ele não tinha, não era cheio de luzinha, farolzinho com luz, nada disso. Ele era um objeto metálico, você vê que era um objeto bem polido, uma superfície bem lisa, e ele brilhava devido à claridade do dia, a luminosidade batia e refletia. Isso era o que me chamou muita atenção.
That was the initial interview only hours after the crash with Carlos de Souza. So he does go on later on in here, but I want to kind of switch over to something else there. Because I think it's time we went and did a thorough, in-depth look at everything here. And I could think of nobody else who can quite do this justice in that time. I mean, in the time frame that we have, but to watch our good old friend, the Y-Files. Because everybody loves the hecklefish. So, enjoy. We'll stop it from time to time and whatnot. And yes, I've already done my little adjustments. So we'll kind of see how things go. I'll kind of try and add commentary where I can, obviously, fair use and all that. Elephant says, sometimes those are aircrafts that various governments are testing. Yeah, possibly, but there's a lot to this one that gets really weird.
The North American Air Defense Command, known as NORAD, was established in 1958. It was to provide early warning and defense against Soviet bombers and missile launches. But it wasn't long before NORAD would be monitoring skies around the entire planet. Early in the morning on January 13th, 1996, NORAD contacted Brazilian Air Defense to report an object entering the Earth's atmosphere about 200 miles northeast of Sao Paulo. When asked what type of object, NORAD said it was unidentified. A few minutes later, it crashed somewhere near the town of Varginha. The Brazilian Army and Air Force quickly scrambled to get to the crash site before any civilians did, but they were too late. The craft was seen and the beings driving the craft were gone. Over the next few days, a series of events would unfold that would change the lives of the people in the area forever. Well,
yeah, NORAD is fun to call on Christmas. That is fun.
at least the lives of the people who survived. Virginia is located.
Hold on.
What?
I'm looking at that word in a teleprompter, and I see. I thought it said.
It doesn't.
Right. Okay, so the town is Virginia. Go on.
Virginia.
Fine, whatever. Just do me a favor. Put the name of the town in the thumbnail, all right? It'll definitely get clicks.
It probably would.
Like, how about strange object enters Virginia?
Virginia.
Or the mysterious Virginia.
Virginia.
You're pretty mysterious. Okay. Go ahead. I'll behave.
Virginia is in the southern region of the Brazilian state of Minas Gerais. Its population of about 135,000 makes it one of the largest cities in the region. Its economy is mostly based on agriculture. Coffee, corn, and soybeans are the main crops grown on the many farms that surround the city. One of those farms is owned by Eurico and Aurelina de Freitas. It was early in the morning before sunrise when Aurelina heard the cows running around the property sounding agitated. She looked out the window and saw hovering above the pasture a cigar-shaped object. She grabbed her husband Eurico. They said the shape of it reminded them of a submarine.
And something to note here is that all this footage is actually footage directly from James Fox's documentary Moment of Contact. So very important to point out is, like, if you want to know who the preeminent expert is on this case, yeah, check out Moment of Contact, the documentary by James Fox. It is worth it. 100%. And Elefant says, where do I pick up my very own hecklefish? I don't know, but I want one.
About the size of a school minibus. The object was billowing white smoke and seemed to have trouble maneuvering. The two watched the craft for an hour before it disappeared over a ridge not far from the farm. On the other side of that ridge, Carlos de Souza was driving to the airport when he heard a strange muffled rumbling. He thought something was wrong with his truck, so he stopped. Then he realized the sound was coming from a cigar-shaped craft about 300 feet in the air, and it was losing altitude. The object had windows along the side and what appeared to be a long crack running through the middle of it. Out of the crack, white smoke was pouring out. Carlos thought this was strange because the smoke from a fire or an engine failure would be black. The rumbling sound made by the craft occasionally sputtered. It was clearly struggling to stay in the air. Carlos jumped back in his truck and followed it. It eventually passed over some small mountains, went into a steep dive, and disappeared. After a few minutes, Carlos found a dirt road that led to the area where it went down. He came over the crest of a hill and saw wreckage spread out over a wide area. Carlos began running to the crash site, which was a few hundred feet from the road. At first, he thought it was a small plane. He was a pilot himself, so if there was a crash, he wanted to help. But it only took him a few steps to realize this was no plane.
And this is where things are gonna get weird.
In the air was a heavy stench of ammonia and sulfur, like sour, rotten eggs. The odor was so strong that he had to wrap his shirt around his mouth to breathe. And even then, the smell stung his eyes and made them water. Debris was everywhere. Pieces of metal that looked like aluminum, but even lighter. Carlos grabbed a large sheet that had almost no weight to it. It looked like aluminum foil. He crumpled the sheet and dropped it. As soon as he released it, the metal unfolded and went back into its original shape, and then floated to the ground like a feather. Carlos started making his way toward the larger pieces of debris to search for survivors. But before he could take more than a few steps, the rumbling of trucks caught his attention. A convoy of military vehicles tore across the field and began establishing a perimeter. Soldiers with guns raised shouted for Carlos to get away. Carlos briefly protested, but only briefly. He was staring down the barrel of a rifle not 6 inches from his face when he raised his hands and slowly backed away. Shaken, Carlos left the scene and stopped to grab a cup of coffee to try and collect himself. After a few minutes, 2 men approached. Carlos described them as tall and neatly dressed in dark suits.
Men in black.
Yep. The men told Carlos that they know who he is and where he lives. They know his wife, his daughter. They told him that he's to forget everything that he saw and never speak of it. Carlos was terrified. He nodded that he understood. Then the strangers got into a black car with no license plates and drove away. And Carlos would keep what he saw a secret for 26 years. Meanwhile, back at the crash site, the Brazilian military was hard at work gathering the wreckage. The craft was definitely big enough to hold a small crew. So the order went out to search for survivors. There were survivors, but the soldiers wouldn't find them, at least not near the crash. Those survivors were already in town.
Yeah. Elefant says, did Carlos have peyote for breakfast? Well, that's the thing. He was on his way to the airport to actually go on a flight, because he was an ultralight pilot. You know, they all usually, him and some friends went and flew out of there occasionally. Obviously, don't want to have anything in your system whenever you're about to go up in the air. And everything about Carlos's testimony seems to point that he was, sound-minded, sober. I mean, he's a teacher, and just definitely not the kind of person that would normally make up weird tales about strange phenomena and whatnot. And based on what he said of his actions, like, hey, I think this is a crash, like a plane crash. I'm going to go help look for survivors. It's a pretty normal, soberly minded thing to do. And then things get even more strange as we go along, because imagine what happens when Carlos returns to the crash site 26 years later. Yeah, teaser. And I will tell you, it's not just him that saw this thing. This, as well as the numerous people that saw the creatures afterward, and the press conferences and all of the cover-up that went around after this, definitely seems to seem like something happened. Yeah, this really sounds like a government aircraft test. I don't know. I'm willing to entertain the thought.
Just a few hours after the crash, authorities started receiving strange reports from residents in the area. At about 8 a.m., a college student reported seeing a creature with oily, dark brown skin crouched in an alleyway near a local park. He said it had very small hands with 3 long fingers. It was between 4 and 5 feet tall and had no hair or clothing.
Yeah, you notice aliens are always naked.
I guess that's true.
Respect.
What?
Yeah, I don't know how you humans deal with pants. I'd like to let it all hang out.
Okay, that's enough.
Prude.
Just a few blocks away, 3 young women, Lily,
By the way, #pants are prison.
Anne, Valkyria, and Katya, were on their way to the same park. They took a shortcut through a vacant lot. There, in the tall grass, huddled next to a cinder block wall, was a creature. It was about 4 feet tall and had a large head. On its head were 3 bumps or ridges. It had huge red eyes. Its skin was brown and looked shiny or oily. It had a slim, frail body and no hair and no clothes.
Respect.
The girls weren't sure what this thing was, but when they approached, it looked right at them. The girls were frozen in fear, unable to move or speak. Though it made no sound, the girls were able to hear this being or feel its thoughts. They could feel that it was frightened, in pain, and needed help. The girls tore out of there terrified. They burst into Katya's house and told her mother that they had seen a demon. The 4 of them returned to the lot, but the creature was gone. However, Katya's mother found a strange footprint. It wasn't a human footprint. Whatever this thing was, its feet had 3 long toes. The girls described the creature to an artist who created this now famous picture. Even though the creature was gone, there was a heavy odor of ammonia that lingered. Katya's mother said she couldn't get the smell out of her nose for days. A few hours later, military policemen Eric Lopes and Marco Cherez were patrolling the area. Suddenly, a small humanoid creature with dark skin darted across the street. Marco jumped out of the car and managed to grab it. They restrained the creature and rushed it to the hospital where, according to reports, it died. Almost immediately, Marco started feeling ill. He said his skin felt greasy even though it wasn't, and there was a lingering smell of ammonia that stayed with him. Over the next 2 weeks, his condition worsened, and he was admitted to the hospital and placed in intensive care. None of the doctors could figure out what was wrong with him or how to help. Finally, at the age of 23, Marco Cherez died of an unknown cause. The doctors said an autopsy wasn't necessary and ordered a closed casket service. They also had his body buried immediately. They said this was to protect public health. They did make his blood tests available. His blood contained 8% of unknown toxic substances. And that was the first death caused by the Varginha UFO incident. But it wasn't the last. Several calls came into the fire department about a wild animal on the loose near the park where the girls saw the creature. 4 firemen were dispatched to look for it. When the firemen arrived on the scene, there were 5 civilians watching the creature that had gone down a steep embankment toward a densely wooded area. They said it made a buzzing sound similar to bees. It took the firemen 2 hours to capture it. It kept running away, and the terrain was hard to navigate, and they were afraid of whatever this thing was. Everyone who saw it said it gave off a strong offensive odor like ammonia and sulfur. Finally, the firemen were able to snare the creature in a net. By now, a military truck arrived from Eza, a military base a few miles away. Witnesses saw soldiers struggling with 2 black bags. One bag was squirming as if something was alive in it, but the other bag was still. The bags were heaved into the truck and it sped away. Immediately, the area was surrounded by military vehicles, and civilians were not allowed in or out of the area. Less than an hour later, a section of regional hospital was ordered locked down. Then 10 military and police vehicles arrived. The truck then pulled up close to the entrance, and 2 soldiers unloaded a black body bag. The bag was taken to the radiology department for x-rays. The x-ray technician on duty that day said the examination room was full of doctors, police, and military personnel. People were nervous and just staring at each other, afraid to speak. The tech was ordered to take x-rays of the bag, which he wasn't allowed to open. He did this, but then the military took the film. The radiologist never saw the pictures. He said he'd never experienced anything like that before or since. He was told to keep everything he's seen a secret as a matter of national security. Then, as quickly as they arrived, the military entourage left with the x-rays and the body bag. But the smell of ammonia and sulfur remained. The tech said the smell felt like it was inside his nose and lingered. In fact, that whole section of the hospital was closed to the public for another 3 or 4 days. No matter what the cleaning staff did, they couldn't remove the smell. They just had to wait for it to dissipate. By the way, one of the firemen who helped capture the alien died a few weeks later from unknown toxic poisoning. Senior military officials warned everyone involved. 50 doctors and hospital staff were put under strict non-disclosure agreements and told this was a training exercise. The doctors and nurses were threatened with prison if they ever spoke about what happened. Soldiers were reminded of their responsibilities to national security, and that if they spoke about what happened, it could be considered treason. These tactics worked because after the military convoy sped away from the hospital, there wouldn't be any new details about the story, where the truck went, what was in it, who was involved, nothing. But 25 years later, a witness would come forward, and he would reveal details that nobody saw coming. It took 25 years, but a soldier came forward who was close to everything. His testimony can be seen in the excellent documentary on this case, Moment of Contact, by filmmaker James Fox. And if you want to learn more about this story, I recommend you check it out, and there's a link below. The soldier who came forward refused to allow his name to be used, so he became known as Military X. But I found a very old report from Varginha local news which revealed his name. Now, I don't want to out the guy, so we'll just call him Raul, which is close to his real first name. Raul was part of the convoy that brought the creature to the hospital, and there he saw the alien in a box. It was covered, but it was between 4 and 5 feet tall. He was able to see its foot poking out. He said its skin was very dark red or brown and looked oily. He knew this wasn't human because its foot had only 3 toes. From the hospital, they went to the Eza military base about 20 miles from Varginha. After they parked the trucks, Raul and another soldier were called into the base commander's office. Their CO asked them what they saw. Raul was frightened and not sure how to answer. He said he thought he saw a burnt man or something like that. His commanding officer told him, "That's not what you saw. You saw something supernatural." Raul was told that if he reveals what he saw to anyone, the consequences would be severe.
Real quick over there on Rumble, Ladle969 asks, dude, is this real? Yes, this is real. This is as real gets. This happened in Varginha, Brazil in 1996. Yeah. Now, follow us down the rabbit hole in this one, because this story, if you think it's weird now, it only is going to get weirder.
The following day was very strange at the base. There were Navy trucks and helicopters there, which was unusual. There was a lot of activity, a lot of unfamiliar faces. People were on edge. Early that morning, Raul and the convoy left Eza and went to a SpaceX Army base in Campinas, about 2 hours away. What?
They went from vagina to the penis.
Varginha, Campinas.
Tomato, tomato, Virginia, vagina. The algorithm is going to punish you for this one.
Well, they are now. From Campinas, and Raul didn't know what happened to the creature, though he had heard rumors that would turn out to be true. Jose Manuel Fernandez was an air traffic controller at the base during this time. He said 2 helicopters left the base, went to Varginha, and returned with what he didn't know, but he thought it was some kind of rescue mission. Then something happened that Jose had never experienced. A large plane was coming in, but it didn't have authorization to land. Jose's supervisors told him to allow it anyway. The plane landed and boxes were loaded onto it. Then it took off again, and that was it. The trucks, the helicopters, and all the extra people just left. Jose asked what this was all about, and he was told it was a secret mission, and that was all he needed to know. But Jose does remember what kind of plane landed. He called it a USAF plane.
A USAF? What kind of a plane is a USAF?
Well, that's what Brazilians call it, USAF, or USAF.
That's
the United States Air Force.
Bum, bum, bum. Of course, as always, the U.S. is involved, and the feds always show up. It's almost as if they know something. Oh, wait, yeah, NORAD picked this thing up and reported it to them. Whoops-a-daisy. Ellie Fan says, of course, USAF picked up Groot.
Wrong. You are fake news.
Merca. Oh my goodness. And continue.
One of the facts that's agreed on by the witnesses from the military is that the United States immediately took over the operation, whatever the operation was. Even though the American plane came and went very quickly, there were a few Americans who stayed behind. A few months after the events, Katya's mother, Donna Luisa, heard a knock on the door. She opened it, and 4 men shoved their way in. She described them as foreigners, neatly dressed in dark suits and pushy. One held a clipboard, the other carried a briefcase. They told her that they were there to make a proposal. She could take all the money in the briefcase, which was tens of thousands of dollars in cash. In return, she convinces the girls to retract their story and admit they made the whole thing up. Then they leave the country and never speak of these things again. She refused. They insisted that she take the money and be silent. Donna Luisa said the girls did see something out there and she wouldn't have them portrayed as liars. Again, the men insisted. As they continued to press the issue, they became very frustrated and Donna Luisa started to become frightened. She told the men to leave her house or she would call the police. Finally, and very suddenly, they left. Another well-respected family just a few blocks away reported seeing an object in the sky on the evening the aliens were captured. They said the object was the size of a bus. circular and metallic. It hovered just a few hundred feet above their house. And though it was rotating very quickly, the object was completely silent. They said it was traveling slowly back and forth like it was looking for something. After they made their report, 2 men paid them a visit. They asked a lot of questions and talked to the family for hours. And just before the strangers left, they said, "What you saw didn't happen, and this conversation never happened." They implied that if they spoke publicly, it would be very bad for the family. And to this day, the family insists that this entire story happened, but they refuse to give their names. A key to this entire story is Eric Lopes. He was the partner of Marco Cherez, the young military policeman who died after touching the alien. Lopes is one of the only people alive who can confirm the story. He was there when the alien was captured. It was in his car when they drove it to the hospital, and he helped carry it in. For 25 years, he's refused to speak about the incident. When James Fox and his crew showed up at his house to ask him about what happened, he was so agitated, he threatened to shoot them if they didn't leave him alone. The Varginha UFO incident has been called the Brazilian Roswell. It's considered to be the most compelling case for UFOs and aliens in history. Or is it?
And now we get into the section where we need to make sure we put up the, after everything has been said, for all this information, we need to go through and do a very, very important thing. Because this is the part of the video where we're going to look at some possibilities. What could be a possible real-world explanation for this? What could debunk these claims? There's some worthwhile things to consider in this, I will wholeheartedly admit. And I think it's important that we don't over-sensationalize certain events. We consider the possibility that, maybe things were a little less paranormal and a little more normal. But hey, honestly, after everything that I've seen, I still think that there's something that happened there. But hey, let's just get into it. Whatever. Okay. Or something crashed.
The Varginha UFO incident became a world-famous case in 1996, and with the documentary Moment of Contact being released, it's once again on people's minds. But how much of the story is true? Well, this is a difficult case to prove and disprove. The fact is, there's not a single piece of physical evidence to support that any of this happened. The entire story is based on witness testimony that, over the years, has been less than consistent. You'll hear some documentaries say that the witnesses have no reason to lie because they haven't made any money for their story. That's not true. Quite a few witnesses have been compensated over the years. In fact, the Wall Street Journal reported that the girls who found the creature wouldn't give an interview for anything less than $200, something they later denied. About those girls, it's important to know that there was no Varginha UFO incident before the girls' story was made public. It was only after they were covered on a popular TV program that other witnesses came forward. And those witnesses described the aliens the same way the girls did. So the new witnesses either saw the same alien or they were lying and building on other stories they heard. There's no way to know for sure. But when the girls reported the creature, they never said it was an alien. There was no mention of a UFO. They thought the creature looked like a demon. At the time all this was happening, people in the area were obsessed with a cryptid called Chupacabra, which was getting a lot of coverage. It was a local UFO researcher who proposed that what they saw was an alien. The official explanation is that the girls actually saw someone locals called Mudinho. Mudinho means little mute. His real name is Luis Antonio de Paula. He was a mentally and physically disabled man who would spend hours crouching and looking at small objects on the ground. He lived where the girls saw the alien. In fact, he still lives there. He doesn't live near the location, he lives at the location. The day they saw him, there was a major storm passing through the area. So much rain fell that some parts of the town were flooded. It could be that Mudinho was covered in mud, which was known to happen, and he scared the girls. Now, the girls say that it couldn't have been Mudinho because they know him and wouldn't mistake him for an alien. But in the original report, they said they didn't know him. And when they first saw him, they thought he looked like a demon. They said the same thing about the alien. They may or may not be lying intentionally, but one of their versions of the story is wrong. And this isn't surprising. It's a 26-year-old case. Witness reports are all over the place. This was a huge story in 1996. It made international news. People's memories change over time. If you read an interesting detail about this case, you may, even unknowingly, add that detail to your version of the story. Tell that story enough times, your brain will actually create a false memory to support it. When Katya's mother first told the story about the men trying to bribe her to get her daughters to retract their story, she said they implied there would be a payment. Later, the story included a briefcase full of cash. Now, did she forget this detail early on? Or had she been hearing stories about the men in black for so long that the briefcase found its way into her memory? Side note, the weather conditions make it unlikely that anyone saw an alien footprint in the mud, but who knows? Stories vary. Some witnesses gave statements that they later denied. Others denied seeing anything, but then later came forward. And other witness reports don't fit the timeline at all. The couple who first saw the UFO over their farm, they said it happened a week earlier. It's possible they aren't remembering correctly, but if I saw a UFO hovering over my house for an hour, I'd remember every detail about that day. Memories are stored with emotion. The more emotional the event, the more likely you are to recall it. People who lived through the JFK assassination or the 9/11 attack know exactly where they were when they heard the news. People vividly remember the days their children are born and vividly remember when their parents died. Emotions create memories. Now, about Marco Cherez, the young officer who died after touching the alien. It's said that he was perfectly healthy and suddenly became ill. That's not true. He had a cyst on his arm that became infected. The cyst was documented well before any of this happened. Marco wasn't connected to the UFO story until much later, and his sister was the first person to bring it up. Now, she says it happened and that's that. But her earlier story said it was possible he was involved, though she didn't know for sure. The Brazilian military released a report of these events that was over 1,000 pages long. According to the report, Marco wasn't even working that night. The report also says all the military vehicles in the area were part of a training exercise, as a base was a training base. The military convoys were just vehicles all going in for scheduled maintenance at the same time, which they do. After all, the base is just a few miles away. The hospital wing was closed, but that was because they had to make it sterile enough for new cardiac equipment that was being delivered. By the way, that equipment was delivered in stainless steel boxes by the military. The body bag was a recently exhumed cadaver that was part of a police investigation. What people thought were aliens at the hospital were actually a dwarf couple there to have a baby, and they were helped in by a soldier. Now, some of those facts sound perfectly reasonable to me. Others, like the pregnant dwarf, not so much. But that's part of the story. It's all a cover-up. The military altered the records after the fact. They even gave a very sketchy press conference about this.
Da região.
Nada temos a esconder. Pelo que eles estavam fazendo no dia do acontecimento, trabalhando em prol do exército, em prol da nação. Isso tem como ser comprovado? Para quê? Para a imprensa. Por quê? Porque não se quer provar os fatos, não tem que provar. Tudo que eu tinha a dizer foi isso.
Sketchy at all? Because I think it's definitely sketchy. Sketchy that the government guy there to give a press conference to try and tell everybody it's okay is like, okay, well, I'm just gonna say that this is happening and this happened and it's not a big deal, and it wasn't an alien, it wasn't a UFO, so just deal with that. And when people say, well, what about what everybody's saying? Can you prove this? He's just like, prove it to who? What do I need to prove? I don't need to prove anything. Peace. And just walks out of the room. Government's going to government no matter whose government it is. Just saying.
Is General Lima covering up? He acts like it. But if there really wasn't anything weird about this incident, the general would be pretty irritated that he'd have to deal with any of this. So how you read him and any of the witnesses really comes down to your point of view and toward which side you lean, skeptic or believer. If you watch James Fox's Moment of Contact, some of the witnesses are compelling. In the case of Marco de Souza, the man who found the craft in the field, he's so overcome that he breaks down into tears.
Aqui. Aqui. Aqui.
Here.
Aqui. Aqui.
Here.
Aqui. Aqui. Foi
This is
aqui.
a powerful moment. This moment in the documentary when Carlos de Souza goes back to the crash site, and he just immediately, like, he remembers exactly where he's at and where everything was. And you just, I'll put it this way. I have seen a lot of movies in my time. I've seen a lot of acting. I've seen a lot of folks with fake emotions. I've seen real emotions. And I will be honest to you right now. I sincerely believe, based on my own experience and my own personal, if you want to call it anything, call it my own personal bias, how he reacts to seeing this spot and his breakdown and just the tears that come out of his eyes tell me that this really happened and that he really experienced this. It's a powerful moment, and it's one that you cannot forget in the documentary.
Aqui, ó. Uau! Foi aqui, ó.
Now, if he's acting, he should leave Brazil and move to Hollywood. Fox gets statements not just from local residents, but from doctors and people in the military. They all say it happened, and they give vivid details about what they saw. Yes, some people won't talk. Others talk, but with their faces blurred and voices changed. But some people put their names and faces out there for everyone to see. Now, it's been so long that these people could be misremembering, but they don't come across as liars. But there's no way to tell if what they're saying is true. There is one man who could settle this entire case once and for all, Eric Lopes. He was driving the car when Marco Cherez captured the alien. He saw everything, but he's willing to shoot people who want to talk to him about this. Is he afraid? Or is he an old, angry man living in poverty who's sick of people bothering him about this? If he came forward to confirm that Marco did capture an alien, then the entire official story unravels, and you could throw away that 1,000-page Army report, and you can start rewriting history. Because Eric Lopes is one of the few people on the face of the planet who could confirm 100% without a doubt that aliens are real and they are here. For now, the Brazilian military and government deny everything. And if the Brazilian government is working with the United States on a cover-up, well, they're learning from the best. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. My name is AJ. That's Cyclefish.
Nanu.
This has been the Y-Files. If you had fun or learned anything, do us a favor, like, comment, subscribe, share. That stuff really helps the channel. And like most topics we cover here, today's was recommended by you. So if there's a story you'd like to see or learn more about, go to theyfiles.com/tips. And special thanks to our patrons who make all this possible. Without our Patreon members, there would be no Y-Files. So I thank you guys with all my heart. If you'd like to join a great community, check out the Y-Files Discord. It's free. But if you'd like to support the channel, consider becoming a member on Patreon. You can support for as little as $3 a month, or grab something from the Y-Files store.
All t-shirts are guaranteed not to infect you with a toxic alien poison.
Is that true?
Well, I can't guarantee it, but they're most likely safe.
I can live with that. That's going to do it. Until next time, be safe, be kind, and know that you are appreciated.
All right. Well, that's all that. Now I have one final piece, and I want to try and get this in as quickly as possible because I do know that MG Law is starting his stream here pretty soon, and I actually want to go ahead and dump all y'all over to MG Law after my stream is over. So I'm setting that up so that way we can just dump straight over to MG Law's live stream after this one ends. So there's one last video that we need to watch, and it's actually the Joe Rogan interview with none other than James Fox, where he kind of goes over the entire case and why he believes this might have actually been real. So here we go. I'll go ahead and just get this going. And Elifant, I do see your comments there. Once they're all in, I will definitely I will read those like after this, so that way we can make sure we read it in full context. By the way, this is the general. He's talking about meeting the general who was in charge of the operation in Varginha that day in 1996. So I want to make sure I do clarify that, like what he's saying.
With
The general who was in charge on that day refused to talk on, or he would talk on camera. He would do an interview, but anything related to Varginha, he would not talk about. This is more in depth on Joe's actual stream. I highly recommend checking that out as well. But yeah, he's talking about this this general, and the general literally tells him, I will talk about pretty much anything you want to talk about, but if you bring up the 1996 Varginha incident, this interview is over and I will tell you nothing and we will leave. So after the cameras were off, everything was done and they were already packing up to leave, this is what he's saying. He's begging him, hey, can you please just tell me, did this happen? Did it not? What's going on? He was like, was this real? And as he's getting into the staff car to leave without the cameras on, he says, it's real. It happened. Yeah, again, the stench. And again, they mentioned the stench, the ammonia, sulfur, rotten egg smell. It's like just the most putrid thing you can imagine. Just over and over, that thread throughout every single eyewitness, every single person, everybody who had anything to do with this case, they all, despite being completely all separated, none of these people ever talking to each other. The one thing that everybody agrees with is that smell. That to me is an interesting thread. That is James Fox in his own words. And as he mentioned, they got the forensic pathologist to finally come forward about the autopsy of Marco Scerese. See if I can make this a little bit bigger so you can read it. So yeah, it is posted on his Instagram. Alien brought the bacteria in from outside. There's the character E.T. And there's the character bacteria from E.T.'s fingernails. Right? There too where life exists. There will be the cell structure of life, bacteria to creating a man. We are the revolution, or the evolution. There's evolution in every living thing, world, and that may exist out there. Yeah, this is one of the forensic pathologists who worked on the autopsy of the deceased military officer, Marco Scerese. Dr. Yaha, I think it's Joao Baptista Waco Giannini. I apologize if my pronunciation is really bad on there. His statement is unbelievable and just happened last week. This was about 38 weeks ago, so just about 6 months ago almost. I would love to see the full interview and get all the information there. But that, everybody, is the Varginha UFO crash of 1996. It's a weird one. There's a lot of questions to be had. There's a lot of things that we can ask, and there's a lot of information that all I ask is just suspend your disbelief and really think critically. All these different people, all completely separated, none of them talking or interviewing each other or getting information together, and then they all come together with the same very interesting thread of events. It's pretty wild. And that the clue of that smell being the most or the sensation or the sense that is most tied to memory in humans. It's a pretty interesting thing to kind of think about there. But it is definitely a tale worthy of the edge of reality. So real quick there, before we get too far, I did want to read that Elefant posted something. So Elifant says, I'm going to share a story with you. Things are not always as they seem. I have family members who were pilots. One of them was working in the Middle East and flying some unmanned aircrafts, UAVs. One day he crashed. A villager came running up to him. The villager said, oh, I guess he was, okay. The villager said, Mr. Your pilot is dead. The villager was holding a mouse. The man literally thought the mouse was flying the plane. I don't believe in this huge galaxy and beyond that we're the only living beings. Yeah. As that one news anchor earlier on, we showed the video of his science teacher always said, if we're the only species out there in the entire universe, then it's a big waste of space. Seriously. Yeah, I would agree with that. Hal 9000 says, serious question. Are all these people that had the smell in their nose and lungs, others could smell it when they would breathe out? I don't know. They had never really mentioned that if like other people could smell it like emanating from them afterward, but all the people that were involved all claimed that this smell it lingered in their sinuses for days, even weeks after the incident. That is a good question, though. All right. That is it for all of us here at the Edge of Reality tonight. That is everything we've got planned for you. And so next thing I'm going to let you guys know is that I'm actually going to be transferring y'all over and shifting you all over to MG Law's channel. He actually should be getting started about any time. And it looks like he hasn't started yet, but he should be starting momentarily. So I'm going to go ahead and shift you guys all over there. And then I'm going to go and run and grab a couple of things real quick. And then I'm actually going to go enjoy my my pipe from the garage and join MG and company on the stream. And we're just going to hang out and chat for a little bit. So I will see you guys over there. Anyway, as always, folks, definitely please do me a favor. Hit that like button. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. So subscribe to the channel. I want to make sure to provide you guys with new and interesting content. Even if you're not here for the Edge of Reality, definitely be here for my entertainment news and commentary that I do daily. And otherwise, I will see you in the next video. Peace. Wrong stinger. Peace.
You ever wonder why we're here? You ever notice that the information that we're being fed doesn't always add up to the truth? Do you ever look out your window at night when the rain's falling down? You ever look down the street and wonder what is going on around you? You ever look out at night and ask yourself, is this all that I am? Where am I? What am I? Is this all there is? Is this real life? As technology continues to bring us closer together, it also tears us further apart. We watch the skies and look at the planet around us and its natural beauty as it continues to march forward on and on and on, unending, unceasing, unwavering. And yet our world, everything that we've built, crumbles around us. We wonder, is this it? Is there more? There's got to be. We can search. We want to learn. We want to understand. We want to see all that we can see, know all that we can know. We want to look out there. We want to peek behind the veil. We want to ask the questions that nobody will answer. We want to light those fires, the sparks that ignite a curiosity in us. And we ask ourselves, what is out beyond all of that? Beyond